Manifestation is about focus and attraction. We think, you got to visualize, affirm, do these vision boards, and you're going to attract without any action. You're just going to wait and it's going to happen to you. You just got to think about it and it will come magically for you. This is not actually true, and it's creating a lot of problems for people. And a lot of the time when they're doing this sort of manifestation, they actually end up creating what they don't want instead of what they do want. 4 years into my business, even though I did everything I could and I did some energy pieces around it of what I knew at the time, I was 3 weeks away from becoming a homeless single mom because I got into $20,000 of debt. This one is for the women who have done the visualizing, the affirming, the vision boards, and they're still waiting. Manifestation is one of the most misunderstood ideas in business, and by the end of this episode, you're going to know exactly why it's not been working and what to do instead. I'm going to break down the 3 biggest manifestation myths that keep women stuck waiting instead of creating. And you're going to see that you're not failing because you can't manifest and it's not within you and someone else can and you can't, but you've just got an incomplete model and story of the full manifestation picture and the in-depth version of it. So here we go. Myth 1, manifestation is about focus and attraction. We think, you got to visualize, affirm, do these vision boards, and you're going to attract without any action. You're just going to wait and it's going to happen to you. You just got to think about it and it will come magically for you. This is not actually true, and it's creating a lot of problems for people. And a lot of the time when they're doing this sort of manifestation, they actually end up creating what they don't want instead of what they do want. And there's something I need to share with you as to why that is. And the first thing about this is you're magnetizing to you and manifesting not what you're focusing on, but why you are focusing on it. Your orientation and the identity behind why you are saying you want this, or you're going for this, or you're thinking about this, or you want to attract this. The why, the motivation and the orientation to why you're doing it and where you're coming from with it matters more than the thing you're focusing on itself. Let me explain. I was in the beginning of my business and I was deeply afraid of being poor, a single mom on the poverty line, a homeless single mom. There was things I didn't want. I was very much trying to run away from them. So I was doing everything I could with all the actions I could, and also with attraction, energy, manifestation work that I had learned to get away from that. And so I was having the vision board with the money on the vision and the car. And I had, all of these little affirmations and the visualizations I was doing to not be poor, to have money. Because I didn't want to be poor. I didn't want to be a single mom on the poverty line. Even though I was focusing on the money or like the abundance, or it was coming from a place, my orientation, my motivation was from fear, from lack, from what I didn't want. And so what ended up happening was 4 years into my business, even though I did everything I could and I did some energy pieces around it of what I knew at the time, I was 3 weeks away from becoming a homeless single mom because I got into $20,000 of debt. And I had to borrow money off someone and they couldn't give me any more. So I was a few weeks away from not being able to pay my own rent. This is where I got to when I was following the normal manifestation things that I thought was true. This is where I got to when I thought I had to just focus on making money, and that was the thing. It wasn't the thing. It actually ended up making it much worse, because why was I focusing on the money? It was from the fear of poverty. It was from the problem of not having any money. And my energy and focus actually was on lack. It wasn't on abundance. There's this amazing story of like learning how to do Formula One racing. And when they're teaching you how to do this fast speed racing, they say you can't focus on, if you think you're going to hit the wall, you cannot focus on the wall. You can't have your body orientated to the wall, because if you do that, you're going to hit it. As much as your fear and every part of you is going to tell you to do that, you need to resist that urge and you need to focus on the road and where you want to go, not where you don't want to go. And a lot of the time, when we do this typical manifestation, we're focusing on what we don't want, not what we do. We've got all this energy of fear and lack and scarcity, not on abundance and wholeness and what we desire. So within that month, when I started to learn the superconscious way and the true deepest way of manifestation, I started to imagine and see myself as whole and abundant already. And imagine I don't have any problem in the world. What would I love? Not trying to solve this problem. What would I just love? What would I love to do? What would I love to create? Which I'm going to talk about a little bit more later. And when I did that, I started focusing more on just serving people, getting into coaching, doing things I loved. I started seeing myself as whole and complete, just where I was. It wasn't a bank account that needed that. And when I came from that, what do I want? What do I love? Where would I like? Within a month, I had a 20K month, and I created all this abundance because I was in an energy of abundance. I was in a focus of abundance and service and love and wholeness, not unworthiness, lack, fear, scarcity, all these problems I was trying to run away from. So I want you to really understand your focus. It's not just about your focus. It's about why you're focusing on it, where you're coming from when you're focusing on it. And we want it to come from wholeness, love, abundance. And when you come from that place, it creates wholeness, love, and abundance. You can't plant a scarcity seed and expect an abundance tree to grow. You have to plant an abundance seed and a wholeness seed for wholeness and abundance to grow. And I'm going to unpack this even more beyond as well. But the last thing I want to say about this myth too is we think it's just about our focus and attraction. There is a definite law around the universal laws that is about law of cause and effect, and it's about inspired action. It is not a thing where we can just sit there and think and focus and not take any movement towards our desire and think it's just going to come. Sometimes we can draw things in and there's a bit more easefulness, but a lot of the time there is a collaboration with the universe, and we have to actually start moving and taking action as well towards what we desire. Show that we're going to actually start to contribute and do things, and that starts to bring it to us a lot easier as well. And so not just sitting there meditating, nasal gazing the whole time is also super key. But when we shift that focus, they're going to take aligned action is going to be a whole lot easier. So that's a super key part of this myth as well. Now, myth number 2 is you have to stay high vibe. You got to think positive. You got to stay high. You got to manifest in that way. You know, you got to just pretend that you're all happy and like, you know, all this stuff's happening. Oh, well, like just be high vibe. Don't go down low. You know, you're going to manifest bad things if you're in anything like that. You actually need to stop monitoring every thought and stop spiritually performing and bypassing. A lot of the time when we're doing that, we're actually resisting some really important emotions that need to be seen and need to be felt. We're resisting the unconscious, and we're actually making that worse, like we're holding a ball under the water. It's going to just often explode. When I was within the first year or two after my husband and I broke up, I was struggling with really deep shame and like a depression sort of feeling. And I was trying to force myself to be high vibe. I was trying to just be in joy. I was trying to bypass a lot of it. I didn't want to feel a lot of that anymore. I thought, well, I'm not going to manifest good things if I'm down here. So I've just got to go pretend I'm all happy and happy-go-lucky, even though my life had been falling apart. But because I was resisting it, it persisted and it got worse and it got harder. And every time I got a little bit happy, I just went straight back down into this deep pain because I was anchored to this ground and I wasn't actually letting myself feel it. And so it wasn't shifting and changing. And even if I was consciously trying to pretend I was all happy, deep down, my unconscious had all this fear and sadness and grief and all these things that weren't being felt. And the only way that it started to shift when I just allowed myself to feel what I was feeling, and I just accepted myself for where I was at the time, and I just brought love to the shame. I brought love and to the insecurity. I brought love to the doubt. And when I started to bring that, it started to shift the vibration naturally. I didn't have to force it. I just started to naturally feel in that lighter vibration, because emotion is just energy that needs to move and be felt and seen. And if you're trying to suppress it, resist it, it's imagine even like you're an inner child. You have a child, they've got some emotion, they're a bit upset, and you just tell them to shush and to quiet down and to stop, and they just resist, and it gets worse and it builds up and they're pent up and get more angry and upset, and the whole day is ruined because of this just pent up rage they're not allowed to get out. But if you actually just sat there and you listened to them and you just let them feel and you let them experience and you just started bringing love back to them in that, they just go on with their day and they're all back to happy as normal. A lot of the problems is when we think we got to be high vibe is we're actually suppressing things that really just need to be seen and felt. And if they actually just got space to be seen and then we just got to love them, it would move a lot quicker and better. Your vibration is actually affected not from what you're consciously trying to feel, but what you're unconsciously trying to shove down. And if you try to put your head in the sand and pretend you're not in shame or you're not in guilt, or you are. And that vibration is going to be emitting. And the longer you leave it suppressed and unconscious, the longer it's going to be sending that unconscious message out to the universe. And so we need to actually sit and just listen and feel our emotion. Then it will naturally go from a denser vibration to a lighter vibration, just from being aired. Same as a room being all stuffy, you just open the door and just let it air. That is when it starts to lift and become lighter, not by shutting it down and shoving it down and pretending to try and be high vibe and bypass. That's actually one of the things that end up creating a really dense vibration for us and end up not creating the desires that we have. And so the third myth that I want to talk to you about is that we need to heal and we need to fix everything first. We think, oh, once I'm healed, then I'll create. But what happens is the ego, the unconscious, will then go and find another thing to fix, another problem to fix. And then it will find another one and another one and another one. And you'll spend years trying to heal, be in the healing swamp, never actually creating anything. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be fully healed to create. You don't need to think in that way. You get to create right now with whatever you're facing and going through. You think of Vincent van Gogh, these amazing artists, these amazing creators in the world, and not so many of them didn't have their lives all perfectly together. They had struggled with mental health or whatever they were going through, but they were still able to create magnificent pieces of work through. And when we problem solve and we have this healing, got to fix and problem solve mentality, all it does is just create more problems. But when we have a creating focus, the problems get solved along the way. You see, when I was just going through my breakup with my husband, I had so much grief and I was shattered because we had 10 years of love together and that was broken. And then I was trying to figure out how to be a single mom and I didn't know how to even do that, being just a new, mom to my newborn son. And then I had no job and I was trying to start a business, but I didn't really know how to start a business. I didn't know how to have the money. There was problems and my health wasn't great. There was problems everywhere. And as I focused on all of them, I got overwhelmed and I ended up making more problems. And then I tried to heal and get this modality and learn that and fix myself more. And it just made me see that there was more things wrong and there was more pieces that I should need to be unworthy about. And it just created a horrible storm of events. But when I went into a creating focus, when I went into what would I love to do, how would I love to bring this out in the world in my business, how do I want to bring more love to these people, to my son, started focusing on creating, not problem solving, not trying to fix and heal myself, it actually started to lift my vibration. It started to lift how I felt about my life. It started to lift my whole being. And as I did that, my ex-husband and I ended up just becoming more friendly and connected to each other. My health started to shift and change. The way I was parenting and then starting my business too, it all started to flow so much more naturally because creating solves problems, but problem solving just creates more problems. So as you see from today, manifestation isn't just about focus and attraction. It is what you're creating from underneath it. Where are you coming from? Why are you wanting this? What's your motivation? That is key. And you don't need to stay high vibe. You need to change, just listen and not resist, but just sit and feel what you're feeling here. Give it air and it will just naturally start to move into a lighter vibration naturally. You don't need to heal everything first. You can create while you heal. And that's actually going to solve a whole lot more problems for you. So here is your one action from today's episode. Stop waiting to be ready, healed or high vibe. Just ask yourself, what do I want? What would I love? And take one direct step toward it today. And remember, it's not what you're focusing on. It's why you're focusing on it. Much love.